welcome to this edition of Stroke of Genius. We have got a great show lined up for you today. It is going to include our special guest, Rob Oliver. And here in a minute, I'm going to bring Rob on. But before we do that, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some other guests that we have coming on. So Stroke of Genius is, as you know, airs every Friday at 11:30. However, the other show that we have called Vision Alignment, it airs at 10 o'clock Eastern every Monday through Friday. And that show is going to be graced with the presence of the great Patricia Fripp. She's going to be on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. So if you would please come to that, I would really appreciate it. I would welcome you to, because I think it's going to be a phenomenal show. So really lots of good things to say about Patricia and all that. But our guest today, he really does an amazing job with what he has in life and how he's been able to overcome all of that. So we want to have this conversation this morning about all that with Rob Oliver. Good morning, Rob. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Brian. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
So, Rob, if you would, tell me your story. And you can make this as long or as short as you'd like. And we would love to hear from you.
Sure. So kind of my backstory is that when I was 21 years old, I was involved in a body surfing injury. So body surfing is like surfing without a surfboard. I was riding a wave in towards the shore, and instead of it carrying me forward, it pushed me down, and I hit my head on the bottom and broke my neck. For anybody who's got some medical background, it's at the C5-6 level. What that basically means is I'm a quadriplegic. So it has affected all four of my limbs. I can't move my legs at all, and I've got limited use of my arms and hands. So that's kind of, my foray into having a disability and kind of learning what life is all about and kind of really learning who I am. And from there, I went up to Norfolk General Hospital. Then I went to a rehab hospital and was really having to kind of refocus my life and reassess here's a word that you don't hear very often, Brian, and that is I had to reassess my Robness.
Huh. Yeah, I love that. That's great. How long did you spend in the hospital?
So I was in the hospital for 6 months. It was for 2 months, I was in kind of your regular old hospital. And then for the next 4 months, I was in a rehab hospital, just trying to and the first 2 months were really kind of survival. And then the next 4 months were learning how to re-engage the world. And that's really, I think, the key to what I came to understand. I am still Rob. That's who I am, essentially. My personality, my absolutely abysmal sense of humor, all of the things that I've got there, that's who I am. And those haven't changed. What has changed is the way that I engage the world. But here's the other cool thing. The fact that I can engage the world hasn't changed either. So that to me is kind of the piece that's most important, to understand the world is still there. I'm still here. Let's figure out how to get that together and how to make a positive impact, man.
So you talk about engaging the world. What does that mean?
It means living life. So, there is, I tell the story that when I was in rehab, my occupational therapist came to me and was like, okay, so what do you want to do? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do I want to do? You know what I'm capable of. You know what the level of my injury is. And you tell me what I should be able to do, and I'll work really hard to meet all of those goals. And she said, no, you tell me what you want to do, and I'll work with you to accomplish that. You may not do it like you used to do it. You may not do it like everybody else does it. It may take a lot of creativity. It may take a lot of persistence and perseverance, but you'll be able to accomplish whatever it is that you want. And so that really switched my mindset from an if mentality to a when mentality. I was worried. Yeah, just I was worried about if I was going to be able to finish college. It was when, if I was going to be able to get a job, if I was going to be able to get married, and those all changed from if to when.
Well, then what did you tell her? What did you tell her that what you wanted to do?
Uh, you know, I remember the question. I have no idea what I answered because the question really framed my mindset. Okay. And so that is always that question always comes into play when I'm thinking about life, when I'm thinking about what's the next step, where do I want to be? And so I don't think the answer was as important to me as the question is, if that makes any sense at all.
So it wasn't about what you can be; it's what you want to be.
Right.
Right.
And that's what you just said there, I think is really important, because what I was looking to do is have her set the goals, have her set what the expectations were, and then I would just try and fit into what she said.
Yeah.
And I think in life, particularly for people with disabilities, but for so many of us, we're willing to let others set the parameters.
Yeah.
We're willing to let others set the expectations, and then we just kind of work to meet what others have said.
Isn't that the truth? That is so true. I mean, I can see that in my own life. You know, people set, here's what you can't see. Here's what you can't see. I won't show this to you because I know you can't see that one. Wait a minute. Let me tell you what I can see and what I can't see. So I can see how that would play out for you in spades. That's very interesting. So you talked a little bit about your accident, and I'm amazed of what you've been able to do. And by the way, I know there are people on here listening. If you're on, please put in a hashtag live or a hashtag replay if you're listening on the replay. Tell us a little bit about what where you are, and also any questions you might have for Rob. Please ask them. I'd love to have them on here, and we can answer some of those questions as we go. But for Rob, for you talked about your story, but I'm wondering more about also about your caregivers as you were going through all this. I mean, I'm assuming you didn't live in Virginia at the time, and how did that go with parents, or was it parents, or was it friends, or how did it work?
Sure. So it started off, we were on vacation in the Outer Banks of North Carolina is where the injury happened. And so the closest major hospital was in Norfolk, Virginia. I was living in the Philadelphia area at that time. So I got life flighted from Norfolk up to Philly. It was, I felt really important because the pilot informed me that they had direct priority access, that it was a straight shot. All the other planes in the sky were going to have to divert around us. The only plane that would make us divert would have been Air Force One. So that was kind of which, that's neat. But my girlfriend at the time of my injury actually took that semester. My injury happened in August. So she took the fall semester as external study courses. And she basically moved into my parents' house and came down to visit me at the hospital every single day. And she was a part of my care. And then, I married her, and we're together 25 years later.
So she's still your girlfriend?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, she's an amazing person.
Yeah.
And she taught me one of the most important lessons that I learned about living with a disability. And that is, she taught me that my external circumstances don't define me. It is my character, it's my heart, it's my personality. It's the things that are as I talked about earlier, that are my Robness. That's who I am. And that's who she says, that's who I love. And the rest of it is not that important. So, yeah, so she's been part of my caregiver. My parents, I've had friends. I've got, for me, I've got a lot of connections through church. And so some of the guys from church are helping out with that. And then I do have a regularly scheduled attendant that comes in and helps out with that as well.
So is that daily or?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I get 40 hours a week of attendant care.
Okay.
And, just it's help to get up in the morning and then help to go to bed at night. But in the middle of the day, I'm basically on my own, doing my own thing, lining up speaking engagements, lining up podcast guests, doing some marketing for my speaking, all that kind of stuff is, I don't need anybody for that. I've got the technology to do it. I've got the desire and the wherewithal to do it. It's just a matter of basically the setup, getting set up in the morning to go, and then getting everything taken care of in the evening to get back to bed.
So you can get it all set up on your own?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got the voice input software, and I've got just, the little bits of technology. And it's really a cool thing to me, because this month is National Disability Employment Awareness Month.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I think it's important. I've done work with HR professionals to share with them why employing people with disabilities is not just like a socially good concept, and it's not just building good karma, but it's actually a good idea on a number of levels. Number one, if you're looking for a potential pool of employees, as you're probably well aware, the employment rate for people with disabilities, this is not the unemployment rate, it's the employment rate for people with disabilities, is right around 20%. 80% of people with disabilities do not work. And so if you're looking at a huge untapped potential pool of employees, there you go. And then additionally, to take a look at some of the myths that are out there, that it's going to be so expensive. And just give me like 30 seconds and I'll go through this real quick.
Yeah.
For me, to hire me, I'm going to need a headset, and I'm going to need voice input software. I'm going to need a trackball, and that's basically the extent of what I'm going to need. All of the equipment that I need you can purchase for less than $400. And you throw in there that I bring my own office chair, and as you're likely aware, a good office chair probably will cost more than $400. Right. So it's either net equal, or you actually come out ahead by hiring me.
Huh. That's good. I never thought of that. Hey, there's some people on. I want to bring them on and show you who's listening. So my friend Wes Wyatt, he's on. I'll let you. He loved what you said. It's not if, it's when, and that whole concept. So that was awesome. And then our friend Rhonda Ben Scooter, that came on as well. So she's live, and she definitely agrees with all what you said so far. So, and I'm sure she'll continue to agree because of all that. So yeah, really appreciate everything you've indicated so far, and I want to also encourage our listeners to continue to send us any of your comments, or maybe any questions you might have for Rob of how he does what he does. I wonder about and obviously I don't have all the questions. I certainly don't have all the answers, but I wonder about how you navigate with all the 40 hours a week. You still have and you work, so you have a job, but do you need to control how much you make in order to not lose some benefits, or is that an issue?
So here's what's really cool. In the state of Pennsylvania, we have a program. We've got two different programs for attendant care, and I hope that I don't bore anybody with the technical side of this. Okay, we have what is known as the Medicaid waiver, and in that, if you're eligible for Medicaid, then you are able to get attendant care through that. It draws down some federal funds, and then it has some limited amount of matching state funds. if you are not Medicaid eligible because of what you're making, there in Pennsylvania, there's a program called Act 150. Not every state has this, but that is totally state money. And as a result of that, what their thought is if we can get people to make enough money that they're no longer eligible for Medicaid, it's going to actually benefit us as a state. It's going to increase our tax rolls. It's going to be something that is moving people from just being kind of dependent on the state for their income, dependent on the state for everything, to becoming more independent. And so that program has been specifically designed for working Pennsylvanians to encourage them to get out there, to still have the supports they need to get to get the job done, but to also become as independent as possible. And to me, one of the major steps to independence is employment.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that makes total sense. So back to the caregiver though. I wonder about because you have 40 hours a week from them. Does your wife, is she employed outside of the home?
Well, okay. So a little bit more of my backstory.
Okay.
I am also, well, let me back up and I'll try and just make this quick. My wife and I had been married for a couple of years, talked about trying to have kids, and I was worried about what kind of dad I was going to be, and because I've got all kinds of limitations. And so she came down to it and said, "Listen, what does a dad do? A dad teaches his kids right and wrong. A dad is there when his kids need him, and a dad loves his kids no matter what." And I'm like, all those things I can do from my wheelchair. So we went through a lot, ended up doing in vitro, and I will tell you that I am the proud father of 18-year-old triplets. Okay.
Triplets?
Yes. But
wow.
Yeah. So my wife was a stay-at-home mom. And actually, one of the deals that we made when we got married, she said to me, "Listen, I am not carrying your sorry backside. You are going to do what every, basically, the 1950s style family." She says, "You're going to go work. I'm going to stay home and raise the kids." And let me just say that as a parent, I really value the time that my wife was able to spend with our kids by being a stay-at-home mom. And I realize not every family can do that, and it doesn't. But for us, that was the way it worked. So now that they're 18 and I've got 2 in college, I've got 1 doing some mission work. But so she's doing some work outside the home right now, which is good because during COVID, my opportunities to get out there and do speaking engagements is limited. And so my earning potential has been kind of limited as a result of what's going on, and she's doing some work, but it's still managing to, she is a major part of my care team, but she's not there every day, all day to kind of pick up that in-between time between when the attendant comes in the morning and in the evening.
So she was your main caregiver when you were going through all this in Virginia and then beyond that, right? So she's always been the primary caregiver, or has it been your parents? Or
so there was a point in time between when between my injury and when we got married. There was I was injured in '93, in August of '93. We got married at the end of December in '94. So my parents were kind of my primary caregiver between when I got out of rehab and when I got married. But from there, she has been the one consistent and primary caregiver that I've had the whole time. Yeah.
You're a lucky man.
Extremely lucky. I've got a good woman. Every now and then, I say every now and then, almost every day she reminds me how lucky I am to have her because she's amazing. But that's just her personality.
Hey, that's all good. I love it. That's great. What is it that when you were going through all this? I mean, and even now, what do you think you have, or maybe you don't always express? Because I mean, being somebody that's disabled, in any form or fashion, there are certain things there that you just, when you hear them or you see them or whatever, you kind of just swallow hard and like you just accept it and like, okay, let's go on. what do you think it is that maybe you have, or maybe you've experienced, that you would wish your caregivers knew that it was not the best, or maybe it is the best and they just don't know it?
My caregivers make fun of me because I ask questions a lot. I don't, and they'll say to me, like, can't you just come out and say, like, do it this way? Why do you have to say, hey, are you sure you want to do that now? Or, but what I have come to understand is life is about relationships. And to me, what I'm trying to do is use whatever abilities and skills that I have, no matter how limited they are, to invest in other people. And my goal is, listen, I crash at least once a year, usually twice a year. And I'm like, this is really hard. This is really difficult. But in the meantime, it's a matter of taking that focus and not making it internal and not making it about how hard this is for me, but turning it outwards and saying, okay, how can I be appreciative of my caregivers? How can I express my appreciation for what they're doing? How can I support them? What is it that I can do for them? Because I don't want this to be a take-only relationship. I want it to be a give and take relationship.
Right.
So one of the things I can do is listen. And everybody needs somebody to listen to them.
Yeah.
And one of my caregivers talks about the fact that, like, I'm the best listener he knows.
Aww.
And which is a really high honor, but he's willing to talk to me about almost anything. Just because I'm willing to listen, and he has confidence that I'm not going to go blab it everywhere and all of those things. But it's that confidence to know, here's a guy who will listen to me, who cares about it, and isn't just anticipating what to tell me about, this is your advice, this is what you're doing wrong, is just willing to say, that must be a very difficult thing to go through. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yeah, you did. I appreciate it. So, you mentioned in there, you crash once or twice a year. What does crash mean?
It's the day that I wake up and it's like, this is really hard.
Oh.
And you know what's going to happen? I'm going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be the same miserable experience that I had today. And it's going to be the same the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that. There's not any improvement coming. It's just going to be the same stuff. And you can look around and you can just see the experience of, I can't, if you want to go visit your neighbor, go ahead, you can go visit your neighbor. I can't visit all of my neighbors.
Right.
Some of them have been very kind and have made a ramp so that I can get into their homes, but there's a limited amount there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. And you can either look at it and say there are some folks who don't care enough to let me into their house, you've got to put the focus on the positive. You've got to put the focus on the opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's where it is. So every now and then, like I said, once or twice a year, my focus turns inward, and as I look at my circumstances, I feel overwhelmed, and I feel lonely, and I feel like nobody really understands where I am.
Right.
And then my wife reminds me of the fact that I've got a wife who has been with me for 25 years, who loves me. I've got kids that are unique and amazing and that I'm blessed with. I've got friends, family. That when you start to look at what I've been blessed with in my life, you turn the focus from inward to outward, and as you do that, that's what ultimately makes the difference for me.
Yeah, that's cool. It's good to have somebody like that to remind us of that. But I'm amazed that you have friends that really like you so much that they actually changed their house for you. I think that's amazing. I have never heard of something like that before.
Most of what it is, it's small stuff. Okay. and it's just building a ramp to get in the house.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. And okay, now I will tell you that my brother-in-law, who lives just down the street from me, is a contractor, and so he has extra boards and extra stuff around. And so whenever somebody's looking to get a ramp, you can generally find the material. But my neighbor behind me, he built his own ramp. He actually took the ramp that he used to use to get his lawnmower into his truck, mm-hmm. and adapted that to make it work so that he could get me in the house. And my best friend growing up, he unfortunately passed away from prostate cancer, but his wife lives close by, and she had a contractor come in and build a ramp that's in their garage, and it makes it so that I can get into the house. That's really cool, and it means a lot to me, because not only does it say I care enough about you to let you in my home, but you go in and you're breaking bread together, you're sitting with people, and you're enjoying that social time. And that really is where friendship and kinship and relationships are built, is around meals.
To me, Rob, that is the biggest highlight of this whole conversation, that you actually have friends and relationships that are so strong that they make it more accommodating for you to come into their home. I mean, that's really, really inspiring. I mean, gives me chills just thinking about it, because who has that? And don't minimize it. Don't say, well, my brother-in-law, he has right down the street and he has all the wood. Don't minimize it. That's a really big deal. I love that.
Okay, and this is not to toot my own horn, but that's what happens when you invest in relationships with other people. Okay, yeah. This is not just my friends saying, we feel bad for you and we don't want you to be stuck in your house. This is them saying, we have a relationship. You bring something to this relationship. It's a mutual relationship, and as a result of that, it's not just that we're doing this thing out of pity. It's because we've got this and we're on equal footing because we are friends and we both bring something to it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love it. Very, very cool. So tell me, Rob, I need to put your website up here too, so people can contact you. How would people contact you if they wanted to hear more about you and see about you?
Sure. So my speaking website, it's yourmotivationalspeaker.com. And
okay.
The fun part about that is if somebody's looking for a motivational speaker and you find me, you have found your motivational speaker. No, I do laugh because every time I say motivational speaker, I have this Chris Farley, Matt Foley living in a van down by the river moment. And that's not exactly what, it's a great skit. But, and one of the things I will say about this is, as a speaker, I don't operate out of shame and guilt. And it's not a story of like, hey, look at me, I've got all these problems and I'm able to accomplish great things. You should be ashamed of yourself because you're fully able-bodied and you haven't amounted to jack squat, to quote Matt Foley.
Don't say that.
No, this is a matter of everybody's got problems, everybody's got limitations, everybody's got stuff that they deal with. And that's what makes us human. What makes us capable of so much is when we take our focus off of the limitations, we put our focus on the capabilities, and then we take the next step to say, not only is the question, what can I do? What are my abilities? But how do I use those abilities to invest in other people, to improve relationships, and to make the world a better place? So yeah, you can check me out there. And listen, anybody, Brian was a guest on my podcast also. So I've got a podcast called Learning from Smart People. Brian is officially a smart person for having been on there.
Don't tell my wife you said that. Don't tell my wife you said that.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the easiest way. Check out Your Motivational Speaker, and .com, and it's the easiest way to get me.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other words of wisdom we can leave our audience with? Are there any questions that have come up? I don't see any questions. So any other words? What's your final word of wisdom?
I'm going to give you a quote. My favorite quote is from John Wooden, the great basketball coach at UCLA. And I'm not sure of the exact wording on this, so this is a paraphrase, but he says, nobody ever achieved greatness by focusing on what they can't do.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. It's a great quote. Well, thank you for sharing your day with us, Rob, and sharing the quotes and all that you've done so far. I mean, I'm just amazed at what you've been able to do and the relationships you have. So I'm thankful to be one of those relationships, and I look forward to continuing it on as we go on about our lives. So thank you very much.
Hey, man, thanks for having me on, and I'm glad to count you as a friend.
All right, great. Thanks, Rob.